Let's take a look at composition and the importance of seeing. Whether you're looking to find or to create a good photograph, it all begins with seeing. And creative seeing is essential. You must be able to see things that untrained people miss. So how do we learn to see creatively? One way to stimulate your seeing and thinking is to study the images of the great photography masters and even the great painters. See how they use composition and notice how everything just works together to carry the viewer's eye from detail to detail. And look at how they use lines of direction that lead the eyes to the center of interest. Light value is another way to draw our eyes to the center of interest. See how the strong contrast between a dark tone and a light one attracts our attention. Since a photograph is only two-dimensional, by using depth in our composition, you give the illusion of distance, which makes a photograph appear three-dimensional. As an example, parallel lines such as railroad tracks or a road seem to come together in the distance, and as they get nearer, they appear larger. Alright, let's take a look at some photographs. Here on this recent wedding that I just photographed, I'm using a couple different elements of composition here. First of all, I'm using lines of direction, which notice how your eye goes from the right hand corner and it just follows it right into the center of interest, which in this case is the bride and groom. And then I'm also using light values. And notice how there's a strong contrast between the dark tone of the groom's tux against that gray driveway, and even the very white gown of the bride against the gray background. It just has such a nice strong contrast. And here we have another one of our wedding photographs utilizing some of the same principles. First of all, there's lines of direction. Notice how the road starts at the bottom right and it continues, goes right to the center of interest, which in this case is the bride and groom, and it goes on through towards the middle top of the photograph. And notice how the road gets smaller. So this is giving us the illusion of depth and also making our photograph more three-dimensional. And the tree line is actually doing the same thing. Towards the front, the trees are very wide apart, and as you follow the tree line down, they get very small and they start to touch. So again, this is adding more dimension to the photograph. And I did the same thing here with the bride and the groom using the composition element of light values. In other words, the bride is pretty much against a very dark background, being the road, and I put most of the groom against a lighter background, which is the foliage and the grass and so on. So this is just a strong contrast between the dark and the light tones, which is also attracting our attention. And to top it off, I photographed this with black and white infrared on our digital camera. Let's take a look at another photograph by another photographer. I love this image. It's just simple, very simple. And again, it uses some of the same principles, again, using the pier as depth, giving the illusion of dimension, and then it also leads out to the deck. And then notice how the bench is a little bit off center. It's to the left third of the photograph. And look at the beautiful strong contrast between the dark tones of the branches and the sky. It's just very dramatic, very dramatic. And this is just a very beautiful, simple photograph. And I also love how the blue sky, which is a cool color, mixed in with those warm tones on the horizon. Beautiful photograph. And another beautiful image by another photographer. I love this image as well. Look at the simplicity of it, how everything just comes together. And look at the lines of direction. Look at the V on the bottom of the photograph, and look at the V up on top of the mountains. It's just leading you right into the center of the photograph. It's so simple, And even though there's a subject towards the bottom of the photograph, he's subdued, so your attention's not going directly to him. It's going more to where he's looking out towards the mountains. It's a great photograph, very simple, and everything just works together.